Good morning, everybody. Ted Speaks community. Today, we're diving into a critical topic that has been lurking in the shadows of the global financial system, shadow banking. You may have heard of it before, but today we're going to uncover how it operates, why it's dangerous, and importantly, how it affects silver and its value. Let's start with the basics. What exactly is shadow banking? In simple terms, shadow banking refers to financial activities that are conducted by institutions that aren't banks, but operate similarly to banks. These can include investment firms, hedge funds, private equity, money market funds, and other non-bank entities. The key difference is that they are largely unregulated and often they function outside the oversight and government regulators. Shadow banks do not have to adhere to the same reserve requirements, capital standards, or transparency rules that commercial banks must follow. This lack of regulation allows shadow banks to take on significantly more risk, often engaging in practices that could destabilize the broader financial system. While they provide useful services such as offering loans or facilitating market transactions, shadow banks are less accountable to the public and more prone to manipulation and abuse. Now let's talk about how shadow banking has a direct impact on silver. At the heart of the issue lies a fundamental truth. Silver is a commodity, and like all commodities, its price is influenced by market forces, including speculation. Shadow banks and other unregulated entities have become major players in the markets for precious metals, including silver. They can take large leveraged positions in silver futures contracts, trading on margins, which can artificially manipulate the price of silver in ways that are not reflective of the actual supply and demand dynamics. Here's how it works. Shadow banks, through various financial institutions, can manipulate the silver market by borrowing vast sums of money, using it to purchase or short silver futures contracts. Because these transactions are not subjected to the same scrutiny as traditional banking, they can create a false sense of market demand or supply. By doing so, they push the price of silver up or down far beyond what fundamentals would suggest. The manipulation distorts the market, making it harder for investors to gauge the true value of silver. The result? It can lead to volatility, market bubbles, and price crashes. It also opens the door for more widespread market manipulation, which can hurt the real physical investors who are trying to accumulate silver as a hedge against inflation or economic uncertainty. And this brings us to a bigger concern: the systemic risk that shadow banking posed to the broader financial system. Remember the 2008 financial crisis? That was in part triggered by a collapse in shadow banking sector. Unregulated financial entities took on too much risk and engaged in reckless lending, which ultimately caused a global economic meltdown. The truth is, the same practices that are fueled the 2008 crisis are still happening today, but now they involve silver and other commodities. As central banks around the world continue to buy gold at record levels, they're also paying more attention to the potential role silver could play in the next financial crisis. Silver, as a store of value, is a commodity that many see as a safe haven in uncertain times. However, with shadow banks operating in the background, we may not always see silver's true reflected value in the market. It's easy for these financial entities to control or manipulate silver prices by engaging in speculative activity, which is not only risky, but also unfair to the real silver investors like you and I. So what can we do about it? We can stay vigilant, stay informed about the effects of shadow banking on the silver market. By understanding how these unregulated institutions operate, we can better navigate the silver market and make decisions based on real fundamental values rather than speculative price swings. Furthermore, it's crucial that we continue advocating for a financial system that's more transparent, accountable, and rooted in real assets like silver. Precious metals, unlike fiat currency, have intrinsic value. Silver is durable, it's fungible, and historically recognized as a store of wealth. As the shadow banking system grows, we need to make sure that the silver remains a reliable, stable investment that doesn't fall victim to the same manipulation that's plagued other markets in the past. So let's close with this. Silver has stood the test of time, and as a form of money, it will continue to do so as long as we remain aware of the forces that can manipulate it. By staying informed and understanding the role shadow banking plays in our financial system, we can better protect ourselves from risk and ensure that silver remains a key pillar of financial freedom and stability. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the little oratory we had here for you today. So let's continue to move forward now that we understand what shadow banking is all about, because this was a real problem during the Great Depression. What happened was the banks got involved in speculative lending, which caused an act to be enacted called the Glass-Steagall Act. Basically, it forbid commercial banks from getting involved in the investment markets. What's happened right now? The same thing. Same thing is happening right now. And what caused that was a lack of liquidity. What caused the Great Depression back in 1932-33 was a lack of liquidity in the whole marketplace. They withdrew liquidity. They got everybody to exchange their labor for worthless pieces of paper, and they exchanged those pieces of paper for loans against assets. Now, what were they borrowing with? Nothing. And what were they attaching it to? Something. These guys are the ultimate alchemists. They take something, attach it nothing. They take nothing, attach something to it through a loan. You can't make the loan payments because they withdraw the amount of M2 money supply, so you can't make the money, simply not out there. And we know this is the actual case because the median income right now is $43,660, whereas 25 years ago, it was $31,778, which is far less than half. However, if you take a look at the price of a new home and a new car, you're going to see the price of a new home and new car have more than doubled, but your income is not. So what they're doing is they're withdrawing liquidity from the marketplace, and very soon you won't be able to make the payments, which is why all this stuff is happening the way that it is. The Bank for International Settlements is going down. So if you owe payments, who do you owe them to? Ultimately, the BIS. And who does the BIS own? They own all the other 207 countries, banks around the world. One of which, of course, it's important to you and I, if you're in the United States of America, is the Federal Reserve Bank. They're not federal and they have no reserves. Woo! Boy, that was quite a mouthful there, wasn't it? Get a lot out of that one. Let's continue to move forward here.
Jordan Conrad's from Gateway Pundit. So, the president signed an executive order just this week threatening to defund sanctuary cities for their policies. Why not just arrest the leaders who are harboring and shielding illegal aliens, actually terrorists, from deportation?
Wait to see what's coming.
Okay. And, well, real quick, your comments on the Wisconsin governor sending directives to state agencies to not comply with ICE and actually stop your deportation efforts.
Wait to see what's coming.
Any updates on the military?
I meant what I said. You can not support what we're doing. And you can support sanctuary cities if that's what you want to do. But if you cross that line of impediment or knowingly harboring, concealing illegal alien, that is a felony. And we're treated as such.
Any updates? Tell us anything about Mike Waltz from China that we've seen coming over in recent years?
No update.
Any thoughts on Mike Waltz's tenure as National Security Advisor?
I've been in a skiff all morning doing classified briefings. I'm not aware of that, and it's not on my lane.
Was he in there?
Well, good morning, folks. Margaret Ann here, Ted's wife. So I did want to just tell you we're playing a little bit of that clip again, and you need to watch Tom Holman's expression. It's it's priceless. So enjoy.
So the president signed an executive order just this week threatening to defund sanctuary cities for their policies. Why not just arrest the leaders who are harboring and shielding illegal aliens, actually terrorists, from deportation?
Wait to see what's coming.
What a smile.
I think he knows something that's not being told to everybody. Stephen Miller is an absolute beast. He just completely destroyed the media. This man is one of the best in the entire administration articulating what America First truly means.
Those two men kidnapped a young girl named Jocelyn Ungary from her family. They beat her, they sexually assaulted her, they tortured her, they stripped her, they murdered her, and they dumped her body. That is what the Biden administration's policy was. Most of your papers never covered her story when it happened. To the extent that you covered it at all, it was because President Trump forced you to cover it by highlighting it repeatedly over and over again. He had to shame you into covering it. And each and every one of you that sides over and over again with these MS-13 terrorists, to the extent that you have the financial means to do so, you all choose to live in condos or homes or houses as far away from these kinds of gangbangers as you possibly can. If I offered any one of you a rent-free home with no taxes to pay in any of these gang neighborhoods, and I said your neighbors are MS-13 terrorists or Mexican mafia or Sinaloa cartel or Tren de Aragua, I couldn't pay you to live there. But yet you, with your coverage, are trying to force innocent Americans to have these people as their neighbors, and that one day their daughter may be abducted from their home and raped and murdered. So you're not going to get an ounce of sympathy from this administration or President Trump for the terrorists who've invaded our homes and our country.
This explains why they work so hard to discredit President Trump's cost-cutting efforts.
We are at an unprecedented moment. Our financial systems are facing huge risks. from the economic chaos of President Trump and his co-president, Elon Musk.
President Trump ran on this. I mean, he said, we're going to look for wasteful spending across our government. We're $36 trillion in debt, y'all. That's not only fiscally irresponsible, it is actually morally irresponsible. President Trump is actually the final arbiter. And it's interesting that none of you had anything to say over the last 4 years when it is clear that our commander-in-chief was not in command. And if we're going to use the term co-president, then let's go back and say co-president Jake Sullivan, co-president Ron Klain, co-president Jill Biden. I mean, it seems that some of the biggest decisions were made during the president's afternoon nap time. And so I just think we need to be a little bit more honest about what's been laid out and what's actually occurring.
Covered taxpayer funds are going to the Taliban and have loaded weapons at the Institute of Peace with Washington, D.C. When Doge rolled in, they deleted a lot of the financial information. These crimes now have been referred to the FBI and DOJ.
Yeah, and so it was by far the least peaceful agency that we've worked with, ironically.
Of course.
Additionally, we found that they were spending money on things like private jets, and they even had a $130,000 contract with a former member of the Taliban. This is real. We don't encounter that at most agencies.
Yeah.
What was the money going to the Taliban for?
So it was a contractor. They received $130,000 for generic services. And to Elon's point, there was not actually a clear description of what the contractor services were for. But
was it for opium?
Unclear.
Or weapons?
Or nothing.
Or nothing.
or abroad.
Or, nothing.
And you naturally have to ask the question, how did we get here? Like, when the country was founded, there were only 4 agencies. Today, there are over 400. So there's been a 100x increase in the number of agencies since the founding of the nation. And thanks to President Trump, he's now signed 2 executive orders to start to reduce the number of agencies in the government, and the Institute of Peace was one of them, which is why our team went in to try and understand what was going on. And that's when we found all of the craziness, like the weapons in their armory. We found the payments to the Taliban.
Okay. So just try to hide the evidence.
So the agencies are hiding money from you. They're sending it to the Taliban. They have loaded weapons in the department buildings.
At the Institute of Peace.
At the Institute of Peace.
Yes.
That's right.
So this is a cover-up when you guys roll in.
This one, yes, a cover-up. Yeah.
It's a cover-up.
They did delete a vast amount of financial information. That's really a definition of a cover-up.
Isn't that illegal to delete evidence?
Yes.
Shred documents?
It is. It's certainly illegal to delete accounting records that that Congress would certainly want to know where the congressionally appropriated funds are going from taxpayers.
When you catch them going Hillary style on their computers, do you refer this to the Department of Justice?
In this case, we did refer the evidence in the accounting example to the FBI and DOJ, and we were proud to do that. So, yes, we did.
Is it possible that no one got a exchange of Guatemala?
I overheard a contractor tell one of her colleagues to falsify billable hours by creating a PowerPoint to mask a delay in the onboarding process in front of me. And this is like hour 0 at this agency. And so, I mean, this is just a common theme that you take a look at these contracts, you take a look at these grants, and it's veiled in noble rhetoric. You know, it's at the top level. It
sounds good.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. And then you actually just follow what are the funds actually doing?
Or send us a picture.
Exactly. And
the send us a picture request is incredibly good. Like Pixar, it didn't happen. And then it wouldn't be that hard to just, frankly, they could search for some fake pics on the internet or get AI to generate the pics, but they don't even bother doing that.
So you caught them cold billing fraud.
Oh, I caught them, her advising her colleague to do this because it takes a few days to onboard. So that is being investigated right now.
Yeah, I mean, generally, like these programs, these grants are going to be like along the lines of save the baby pandas. And it's like, well, of course, who wouldn't want to save the baby pandas? And you know, in some cases, they've got a show panda, which they will trot out for special occasions. In a lot of cases, they don't even have a show panda.
No panda.
There's not even one panda. Because we asked for pictures, and we don't even get one panda. And it's like, well, that's a lot of, you know, what does $1 billion get you? Does it not even get you one panda?
You really want to see a baby panda?
Yeah, like the Ebola money. We're like, okay, well, we agree with, like, we shouldn't have Ebola, you know. Where is the money going? Oh, it's going to Deloitte in D.C.
Sure.
So actually, a lot of great work at the Treasury this week. One of the crazy things with regards to the Treasury is that when a payment is made, and the computers at the Treasury actually pay about $5 trillion per year, like crazy amounts, there was formerly not a budget code on there. So if a payment was made, you didn't know actually what it was for. It could have been for anything. Yeah. There was a $4 billion COVID fund in the Department of Education, and there was no receipts required, so people could just draw down on it. And when people looked into it, this wasn't us, this was before us, they found that money was being used to rent out Caesar's Palace for parties, rent out stadiums, etc. And so the one change that DOGE made with the Department of Education is we had the simple requirement that if you draw down money, you must first upload a receipt. That was the only change that was made. You must upload your receipt. And upon doing so, nobody drew down any money anymore.
Yes, but we didn't say that we'd check the receipt. You could send a fake receipt. You could send a picture of your dog. Anything. But as soon as we asked for anything at all, suddenly the requests were like, oh, we don't need it anymore. Huh, that's interesting.
They were renting Caesar's Palace.
Yes, they were like basically partying on the taxpayer money.
Stadiums.
Yes.
Leasing stadiums. For what?
For parties, basically.
For parties.
Yes.
That's a big party.
It's a big party.
You'd think if you were stealing, you'd start small.
They do start small. But then what happens is over the years, so generally the fraud starts out small and they try to hide it. But then year after year, if nobody stops the fraud, it gets more and more brazen. And every year it gets bigger until they're literally renting out stadiums. What's
$1 million to rent out a stadium?
Fraud in flagrante delicto, okay?
A country ran by banks will always be in debt. Healthcare run by big pharma will never cure diseases. A state run by war will never know peace. And a nation run by the media will never know the truth.